He called me obsolete, a relic. Then he shoved me in front of everyone, all because he thought I was the hired help. My daughter, the woman I raised single-handedly, was about to marry him. He thought the old contractor was just a worn-out pair of boots. He was about to find out I don't just build houses. I demolish them too. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this crazy world. My name is David, and this is the story of how a Thanksgiving dinner turned into a demolition site. The smell of sawdust, old copper pipes, and sweat clung to me. It was the scent of my life. 40 years of honest work. But it wasn't the scent for Thanksgiving dinner. I sat in my old Ford pickup, the engine rumbling faithfully. I stared at my hands on the steering wheel, raw, calloused, stained with grease I couldn't scrub off. I sighed. The city streets were too bright, too harsh, and I was late. This wasn't just any dinner. My daughter Emily was hosting for the first time. Her new apartment, a high-rise tower of glass and steel. It was a big deal, a declaration of her adulthood. But that wasn't why my stomach was twisted into knots. Tonight I was officially meeting Ryan Harrison, the man she intended to marry. And I already knew I didn't like him. I wanted to look like I belonged, like the father of a woman who lived with a doorman and floor-to-ceiling windows. Not a contractor who had spent his afternoon wrestling a burst water main in a crawlspace barely big enough for a dog. I wanted to fit in, but I had a sinking feeling I never would. That I was just the embarrassing past she was trying to escape. The trouble started just as I was buttoning my good shirt. The one Martha, my late wife, always liked. The phone rang. It was Mrs. Gable, my neighbor from the old neighborhood, the sweet lady who gave Emily cookies when she was little.
"David, please,"
she cried. "Water is pouring through my kitchen ceiling. On Thanksgiving, I couldn't leave her like that. I couldn't walk away from someone in crisis. I'm a builder. When things break, I fix them. It's who I am." So the good shirt went back in the closet. I was in my work clothes, dusty jeans, worn-down boots, a flannel shirt that had seen better days, my uniform, and Ryan would just have to deal with it. I felt that familiar ache in my chest, the one I get every time I drive into the city. Pride mixed with fear. Pride that Emily had built this incredible, sophisticated life. A life so different from the one I knew, and fear that I no longer belonged in it. That I was the old furniture she needed to hide in the basement. I missed Martha. When she died 10 years ago, the world tilted off its axis. Emily became my everything. I worked double shifts, took every side job. I poured everything into her future. I even gave her a chunk of my retirement savings for the down payment on this apartment, a foundation for her new life. I built houses for other people. But Emily, she was the home I built for myself. And now it felt like someone else was trying to change the locks. Now she was marrying Ryan. He was in finance, high-level investments and asset management. Emily had explained, her eyes shining with admiration. Smart, ambitious, charming, according to her. I had my doubts, serious doubts, because charm can hide a multitude of sins. I met him once, briefly. He barely got out of his sleek black German car. He just nodded at me. A curt gesture. Checked his expensive watch as Emily hugged me goodbye. There was a coldness to him, a sharpness around the edges. The look of a man who measured the value of everything in dollars and cents. And I had a feeling I didn't measure up. I finally found a parking spot. My bulky truck squeezed between two gleaming luxury SUVs. I looked up at the building. It pierced the sky. A tower of arrogance. I took a deep breath, brushed drywall, dust off my jeans. A futile effort. I headed inside, feeling smaller with every step. I felt like I was trespassing. The lobby looked like a 5-star hotel. Marble floors polished to a high shine. Strange modern art on the walls. And a doorman, crisp uniform. He looked me up and down, suspicion written all over his face. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked. His tone implied I was looking for the service entrance. He looked at me like I was dirt on his shoe. "I'm here for the Thanksgiving dinner. Apartment 14B. Emily Thompson," I said. I tried to sound like I belonged. My voice sounded rough in the quiet space. He checked his list. His eyes lingered on my boots. A moment too long. Then he nodded curtly, waved me toward the elevators. The message was clear. "You don't belong here, old man, And he was right. The elevator doors opened on the 14th floor. I was hit by a wave of sound. Loud laughter, clinking glasses, smooth jazz. The door to 14B was open, spilling warm, golden light into the hallway. I stepped inside. The apartment was vast. The view of the city lights through the massive windows was breathtaking. Everything was white and gray, minimalist, expensive, cold. The room was full of people who looked like they belonged. Men in sharp, tailored suits, women in elegant dresses. I saw a woman near the window holding a martini. She was young, sharp, watching the room with an analytical coldness. I later learned she was Sarah Chen, Ryan's corporate lawyer. She looked at me, then looked away, dismissing me instantly. Everyone here seemed to have mastered the art of looking through people. "Dad, you made it!" Emily rushed over. Her face flushed with the excitement of hosting. She looked beautiful. A sleek black dress. Sophisticated. Grown up. She hugged me tightly. For a moment, the unfamiliarity faded. "Sorry I'm late, sweetheart." "Mrs. Gable had an emergency," I mumbled into her hair. I knew I was probably getting dust on her expensive dress. "It's okay, Dad. Really. Don't worry about it," she said, but her eyes darted nervously to the crowd. She was anxious, stressed. "Come on in. Ryan's parents, the Harrisons, are here, and some of his friends from work. They are dying to meet you." She guided me toward the kitchen, a strategic retreat, away from the main crowd. It felt like she was trying to manage me. Or maybe hide me. "Let me get you a drink. You look absolutely exhausted." "Just water is fine, Em." I leaned against the gleaming marble countertop, watching my daughter. She was moving with a frantic energy, checking the oven, stirring a sauce, trying so hard to impress these people, to prove she belonged in their world, a world that felt cold and sharp around the edges. My sister, Susan, was in the kitchen, meticulously arranging appetizers on a silver platter. She gave me a sympathetic look over a tower of tiny, complicated-looking pastries. Susan always saw everything. "David, what happened to your clothes?" she whispered. "Work emergency," I sighed, running a hand through my messy hair. "How's the famous Ryan?" Susan lowered her voice even further, leaning in close. "He's polished, David. Very polished. Talks a lot about market fluctuations and tax shelters." She paused, her lips thinning. He corrected Emily on how to pronounce bruschetta in front of everyone. She looked mortified. Susan shook her head. "He hasn't stopped talking about himself since he arrived. He's the star of his own show. Polished surfaces often hide rotten wood." And I was starting to see the rot. I left the kitchen. I needed to see for myself. I needed to understand what my daughter saw in this man. I spotted Emily across the room with a young woman. Chloe. I recognized her from Emily's college graduation. They were best friends, but the atmosphere between them was tense. Chloe was whispering intensely, gripping Emily's arm. "Emma, the pressure he puts on you, the spending, the way he talks to you, it's too much. You don't have to do this." Emily pulled her arm away. Her smile was plastered on. "Fake. Chloe, not now. Everything is fine. You're overreacting." Chloe looked hurt, defeated. She turned away, walking toward the bar. Emily didn't watch her go. She just turned back to the party, the fake smile firmly in place. Something was very wrong. Emily wasn't fine, and I had a feeling Ryan was the cause. The cracks were starting to show. I decided to make myself useful. I started gathering empty champagne glasses, moving quietly through the crowd. I saw him then. Ryan. Ryan. He was standing near the fireplace. A fake one. Just a glass box of flickering lights. It gave off no heat. He held a wine glass, gesturing broadly. He was talking to his father, Mr. Harrison. A distinguished-looking man, but weary, tired around the eyes. Ryan wasn't listening to him. He was lecturing him. "The key is leverage, Dad," Ryan was saying. His voice loud, commanding. "You were always too cautious. The old ways of doing business? Slow and steady? They don't work anymore. They're obsolete." Obsolete. The word stung. It felt personal. Mr. Harrison flinched slightly. He looked down at his shoes. There's a difference between caution and integrity, Ryan. Integrity doesn't close deals. Ryan laughed, loud and abrasive. You have to be aggressive. Move fast, or you get left behind. Look at us now. We're on top because of me. He dismissed his own father. Just like that, in front of everyone. The arrogance was staggering. If he treated his own father like that, how would he treat my daughter? I moved closer, intending to introduce myself, to finally shake the hand of the man who held my daughter's future. As I reached for a glass near their circle, Ryan turned suddenly. He bumped into my arm. Wine sloshed over the rim of his glass. Hey, watch it, Ryan snapped. He glared at me. Sudden irritation flashed across his face. His eyes scanned my clothes, my dusty jeans, my worn boots, my tired face. It was a slow, deliberate appraisal. The chatter around us died down. The silence stretched, tight and uncomfortable. The air grew thick with tension. A look of pure disgust settled on his features. It was clear in that instant. He didn't recognize me from our brief meeting, months mangas, or he simply didn't care enough to remember. In this setting, in these clothes, he saw only one thing. He thought I was the hired help. Sorry, I said automatically. The word slipped out before I could stop it. I felt a flush of heat rise in my neck. A young man next to him smirked. Sharp suit. I later learned his name was Mark, Ryan's best man and partner in crime. Mark adjusted his cuffs, a nervous habit. The temporary staff needs better training, Ryan, Mark said, his voice dripping with amusement. Honestly, where did Emily find these people? Ryan chuckled, a cold, sharp sound, like nails on slate. Tell me about it. Good help is impossible to find these days. They have no awareness. He turned his back on me, dismissing me entirely. He resumed his conversation as if I didn't exist. Now, as I was saying about the offshore accounts, I stood frozen. The glasses trembled in my hands. Humiliation burned, hot and sharp in my chest. Good help is impossible to find. The words echoed, a stark reminder of the chasm between his world and mine. He didn't see a man. He saw a servant. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. I wouldn't let him see me break. Not here, not now. I looked across the room. Emily was busy charming Ryan's mother, Mrs. Harrison. She hadn't seen. I was invisible, and completely alone. I quietly took the glasses to the kitchen. My hands were shaking. Anger and embarrassment churned inside me. I wanted to leave, to get back in my truck and drive away from this cold, sterile place. But I couldn't. This was Emily's night. I would swallow my pride, for her, again. But a seed of doubt had been planted. A cold, hard realization that this man was not worthy of my daughter. For the next hour, I stayed in the background, watching, observing. I became a silent spectator in my daughter's life. I watched Ryan dominate every conversation, his voice booming over everyone else's. I watched Emily. She was constantly checking her phone, hiding the screen. Her anxiety was palpable. I remembered the savings I had given her. The foundation. I hoped she hadn't touched it for this party, for this man, but I had a sinking feeling she had. I stepped out onto the balcony for some air. The city lights glittered below. The cold air felt good on my hot face. My phone vibrated in my pocket. An unknown number. I usually ignored them, but tonight I needed the distraction. Hello? David? David Thompson? The voice was rough. Nervous. Who is this? It's Frank O'Leary. We worked together on the Miller Building job 15 years ago. Frank, a good guy, a solid carpenter. I hadn't heard from him in years. Why was he calling now? On Thanksgiving? Frank? How are you? I'm okay, David. Listen, I don't have much time. I heard you were connected to the Harrison Development Group now. Connected? My daughter is marrying Ryan Harrison. There was a long pause. The silence was heavy, loaded. You need to get her out, David? Frank said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Get her out? What are you talking about? The waterfront project. The big one downtown. It's a disaster waiting to happen. The ground stabilization reports They're fake. My blood ran cold. Fake reports. That wasn't just greedy. That was criminal. Fake? Frank, that's serious. How do you know? I'm working on the site. They're using substandard concrete, cutting corners everywhere. The foundations won't hold if they build on that land without proper stabilization. He didn't need to finish the sentence. I knew what would happen. Catastrophic failure. People would die. Why are you telling me this, Frank? Because I know you, David. You're honest. And because Ryan Harrison is a snake, he's burying the truth to maximize his profits. He doesn't care who gets hurt. Frank's voice trembled. I gotta go. Don't tell anyone I called. He has people everywhere. Be careful, David. These people are ruthless. The line went dead. I stood on the balcony. My mind was racing. Fake reports. Substandard concrete. The waterfront project. Ryan wasn't just arrogant. He was corrupt. He was dangerous. And my daughter was about to marry him. I had to stop it. But how? I had no proof. Just the word of a scared carpenter. It wasn't enough. Not yet. I walked back inside. The party was in full swing. The laughter sounded different now. Hollow. Ignorant. I looked at Ryan. He was smiling, charming everyone. A snake in an expensive suit. Dinner was announced. We all moved to the long, beautifully decorated table, laden with food and crystal glasses. I looked for my place card. I found it at the very end of the table, near the kitchen door. Squeezed between Mark and Sarah Chen, the lawyer, Emily and Ryan were at the center. The guests of honor. The seating arrangement felt deliberate. A physical manifestation of my exclusion, but now it felt like an opportunity. I was seated next to the lawyer, the one who looked through me earlier. The meal dragged on. I watched Sarah Chen. She was quiet, pushing her food around her plate. She looked nervous, anxious, not like a high-powered lawyer at a fancy dinner. She looked like someone waiting for the other shoe to drop. The conversation turned to the upcoming development project downtown, the waterfront district. My blood started to boil. It's an absolute gold mine, Ryan was saying loudly, swirling the deep red wine in his glass. We're expecting a massive return on investment. The key is speed. We need to get the units built and sold as quickly as possible. Efficiency over everything. Efficiency over safety. Efficiency over honesty. Efficiency over life. Mark nodded enthusiastically, eager to agree with everything. Ryan said, absolutely. The demand is there. The location is prime. We just need to clear out the old clutter and build something modern, something sleek. I looked at Sarah. She flinched when Ryan mentioned the speed of the project. Her knuckles were white as she gripped her fork. She knew everything Frank had told me. The old clutter, I said quietly, my voice cutting through the chatter. The table went silent. Everyone turned to look at me, surprised I had spoken. Ryan looked annoyed, as if a fly had landed on his expensive steak. Excuse me, he said, his tone icy, his eyes narrowed. The waterfront district, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though the anger was starting to simmer beneath the surface. Those buildings aren't clutter. They have history. They have character. They are part of the soul of this city. Ryan chuckled condescendingly, a sound designed to belittle. History and character don't pay the bills, old-timer. They just get in the way of progress. Sentimentality is a weakness in business. Progress doesn't mean destroying everything that came before. I argued, my voice gaining strength. Those buildings have solid foundations. They were built by craftsmen, built to last. I paused. I looked him straight in the eye. If you rush the construction, if you use cheap materials and cut corners, you're asking for trouble. The ground there is unstable. Sarah Chen dropped her fork. It clattered loudly on the plate. She looked at me, her eyes wide with fear. Ryan's smile faltered. For the first time that night, he looked nervous. But he quickly recovered. I highly doubt that, Ryan snapped, his patience thinning. The engineers we hired are the best in the business. They know exactly what they are doing. He looked pointedly at my calloused hands, my flannel shirt, And frankly, I don't think your experience with whatever it is you do, patching up leaky pipes or building sheds, is relevant here. The implication was clear. I was a nobody, a laborer. My opinion meant nothing. I'm a builder, I said, my voice firm, my pride stinging. And I know those buildings. I know the materials they used, the techniques. I know the risks. I leaned forward. I wasn't going to back down. Not this time. If you ignore the foundations, the whole thing will eventually crumble, especially if the ground stabilization reports are fake. The silence that followed was absolute, crushing. Rand's face turned pale. Sarah Chen looked like she was going to be sick. Miss Harrison looked down at his plate, his face grim. Rand recovered quickly. He laughed, a loud, abrasive sound that echoed in the suddenly quiet room. But it sounded forced, false. Fake reports? That's a serious accusation, old man. You have no idea what you're talking about. This is a multi-million-dollar project, not a backyard treehouse. He was trying to discredit me, to make me look like a fool. We are optimizing efficiency, maximizing profits, concepts you clearly know nothing about. He paused for effect. You're out of your depth, old man. The insult was sharp, cruel, delivered with surgical precision. I felt my face getting hot, the anger boiling over. Ryan, that's enough, Emily whispered, looking horrified, her face pale. She reached out to touch his arm, but he brushed her off. If this story has your heart racing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Every click helps us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard. But Ryan was on a roll, emboldened by the silence and the alcohol. He was enjoying the attention, the power he wielded. It's true, darling, Ryan continued. Let's be honest. The world is divided into two kinds of people. The ones who build the future, the visionaries, the leaders, and the ones who cling to the past, the laborers, the followers, the ones who succeed, and the ones who settle for mediocrity. He looked me straight in the eye, his gaze filled with contempt, a smirk playing on his lips. You're the past. I'm the future, and the future doesn't have time for sentimentality or character. I pushed my chair back and stood up. My hands were shaking with a fury I hadn't felt in years. I had tried to be polite. I had tried to stay silent. But I couldn't let this man insult my life's work. My values. Everything I stood for. You think you know everything, don't you? I said, my voice low and dangerous, vibrating with suppressed rage. You think success is measured only in dollars and cents. You think the world revolves around you and your ambition. You have no respect for the work that built this city, the sweat and sacrifice of the people you call obsolete. Ryan stood up too, towering over me. He was younger, stronger, but I didn't care. I was tired of being humiliated, tired of being dismissed. I know I'm successful, he sneered, his voice dripping with arrogance. And I know you're a failure, a washed-up old man who can't even dress properly for Thanksgiving dinner. You're an embarrassment. He stepped closer to me, invading my personal space. His face red with fury. He was losing control. The mask of the charming golden boy had slipped, revealing the ugly, rotten truth underneath. The polished facade was cracking. Dad, please, Emily pleaded, tears welling up in her eyes. She looked confused and scared, trapped between the man she thought she loved and the father she knew. I started to move around the table, needing to put some distance between us, needing to calm down before I did something I regretted. I just needed some air. Ryan stepped into my path, blocking me, his posture aggressive. Where do you think you're going? He demanded, his voice low and threatening. We're not finished here. I need some air, I said, trying to move past him. My voice strained. That's when it happened. It was fast. Brutal. Ryan put both hands on my chest and shoved me hard. I stumbled backward, losing my balance, crashing into a small side table laden with desserts and coffee cups. Crystal glasses shattered on the floor. The sound sharp, explosive in the silent room. A pumpkin pie, Martha's recipe, splattered across the expensive white rug. The room erupted in gasps. Susan screamed. I caught my balance. The breath knocked out of me. The shock of it was worse than the physical contact. The sheer audacity, the violence of the gesture. It left me stunned. He had put his hands on me, in my daughter's home. On Thanksgiving, Ryan stood over me, breathing heavily, his eyes blazing with triumph, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "Stay out of my way, old fool," he hissed, the words dripping with venom. "You're irrelevant." The silence that followed was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The smooth jazz music played on, a grotesque soundtrack to the shattered peace. I looked at Ryan, the man my daughter was supposed to marry. I saw the cruelty in his eyes, the arrogance in his posture, the emptiness of his soul. He genuinely believed he was better than me. He genuinely believed I was an old fool. And then a voice cut through the silence. It was Emily. Ryan. Her voice was cold. Colder than I had ever heard it. It was a voice stripped of all emotion, all warmth. It was the voice of judgment. Ryan turned to her, his expression shifting instantly, fury to confusion. Then to a sickeningly sweet attempt at appeasement. "Darling, I'm so sorry you had to see that. I'll have the staff clean this up immediately." This man, he stopped. He still didn't get it. Emily was walking toward him, slowly, deliberately. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, but they were burning with a cold fury I had never seen before. A fire inherited from her mother, Martha's fire. "That man," she said, her voice clear and cutting, each word aired of glass. "The old fool you just pushed, the man you insulted all night, the man you dismissed and humiliated." She paused, letting the words hang in the air, heavy with consequence. "That man is my father." Ryan's face turned ashen. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time that night. He saw the resemblance, the jawline, the eyes. He saw the truth. The man he had mistaken for the help. The man he had dismissed, demeaned, and assaulted. The father of the woman he was about to marry. His world crumbled. I didn't know," he stammered, the arrogance melting away, replaced by sheer, naked panic. "Mr. Thompson, I am so sorry. I misunderstood. He thought I was nobody. He thought he could treat me however he wanted. Because I was wearing work clothes. Because I had calloused hands. He thought I didn't matter." Emily didn't let him finish. She reached up and slowly, deliberately, pulled the large, ostentatious diamond ring off her finger. The stone caught the light, sparkling coldly. "You didn't misunderstand anything, Ryan," she said, her voice cold as ice, devoid of any mercy. "You showed me exactly who you are. A bully, a coward, a man with no heart, no character, no soul." She looked him straight in the eyes, her gaze unwavering. "You talked about how I needed to prove I belonged in your world," she continued, her voice trembling with rage. "How I needed to match your lifestyle. This dinner, this apartment, you pressured me into spending everything I had, everything my father gave me for my future. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The retirement savings, the foundation I had given her, it was gone. Used to impress this monster." "Emily, darling, that's not true," Ryan pleaded, his voice desperate. "We were investing in our future." "Our future?" Emily laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You talked about the future, but you have no respect for the past. You have no respect for the man who worked his entire life, who sacrificed everything, who built the foundation I stand on, just so I could have the opportunities I have today." She was defending me, defending my life's work, the man who taught me the value of hard work, integrity, and kindness. She held the ring out to him, her hands steady. "You're finished," she said coldly. "Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life." Ryan stared at her, speechless. He opened his mouth to protest, to beg, to bargain. But one look at Emily's face told him it was over. There was no coming back from this. Mark, his friend, tried to intervene, stepping forward nervously. "Emily, come on, be reasonable. Ryan just had a bit too much to drink. He didn't mean it." Emily turned her cold gaze on him.
"He meant every word. And you agreed with him. You laughed with him. You can leave too, all of you.
Ryan looked around the room, searching desperately for an ally, a lifeline. He looked at Sarah Chen. She looked away, refusing to meet his eyes. He looked at his father. Mr. Harrison just stared at the floor, his face pale and drawn. He snatched the ring from Emily's hand, his face contorted in a mask of rage and humiliation. The mask was gone now, completely shattered. He turned and stormed out of the apartment, Mark following closely behind him like a whipped dog. The door slammed shut with a finality that rattled the expensive art on the walls. Silence in the room was heavy, profound. Susan was crying softly into a napkin. Ryan's parents stood up. Mr. Harrison walked over to me, his eyes filled with shame. "Mr. Thompson," he said, his voice trembling, "I apologize for my son. You were right. About the foundations. About everything." He looked at Emily. He wasn't always like this. Greed poisoned him. They quietly excused themselves. Sarah Chen lingered. She walked over to me, her face pale but determined. "Mr. Thompson," she whispered, so only I could hear. "What you said about the stabilization reports, you were right. He's been burying the evidence for months. The fake reports, the substandard materials. It's all true." My blood ran cold. It was worse than I thought. She slipped a business card into my hand. "I can't be a part of this fraud. I quit tonight. If you decide to do something about this, call me. But be careful. Ryan is vindictive. He will try to destroy you." She walked out, leaving the ruined dinner behind. The party was over. The beautiful Thanksgiving feast was destroyed, but the air in the room felt cleaner, lighter, as if a suffocating weight had been lifted. Emily stood there for a moment, her back straight, her head held high, a warrior queen surveying the battlefield. Then the composure broke, the strength dissolved. Her shoulders started to shake. She covered her face with her hands. I rushed to her side and wrapped my arms around her. She buried her face in my dusty flannel shirt, the familiar scent of sawdust and sweat now a comfort, a reminder of home. She sobbed uncontrollably, great racking sobs of heartbreak, loss, and relief. "Dad, I'm so sorry," she cried, her voice muffled. "I was so blind. I was so stupid. The money, it's all gone. I wanted to make you proud. I wanted to show him I belonged." "It's okay, sweetheart," I whispered, stroking her hair, holding her tight. The loss of the money hurt, but it didn't matter. "It's just money. We can rebuild. We always do." She was safe. It couldn't hurt her anymore, but I knew this wasn't over. Ryan wouldn't just walk away. He had too much to lose, and he would fight dirty. Later that evening, after we had cleaned up the mess together, Emily, Susan, Chloe, who had come back to help, and I. Emily and I sat on the balcony, wrapped in blankets against the cold November air. The city below was quiet now. "He offered me everything, Dad," Emily said quietly, staring out at the vast expanse of lights. "A big house in the suburbs, its security, a life without worries, without struggle. It was intoxicating." "I know," I said, sipping the coffee. Susan had made. I understood the appeal, the desire for an easier life. "But when I saw him look at you like that," she continued, her voice trembling slightly, the memory still raw. "When I saw the contempt in his eyes, the cruelty, I realized that everything he offered meant nothing if it meant losing myself, losing the values you and Mom taught me, losing respect for the man who gave me everything." She looked at me, her eyes clear, shining with a newfound understanding. "He didn't understand that true value isn't in a bank account. It's in character. It's in the things you build with your heart, not just your hands." I smiled, a tear escaping my eye. "Your mother would be so proud of you. And so incredibly proud." She leaned her head on my shoulder, a familiar gesture that brought a profound sense of peace. "What about the waterfront project, Dad? What he's doing, it's dangerous." "I know," I said, the weight of Frank's words and Sarah's warning settling on me. "And I'm going to stop him." The next morning I woke up early. I drove down to the waterfront district. The construction site was quiet, deserted. I walked along the perimeter fence, looking at the foundations they had already poured. Frank was right. The concrete was substandard. Cracks were already forming. Hairline fractures spiderwebbing across the surface. This building would never stand. It was a death trap. A black SUV pulled up beside me, tires crunching on the gravel. The window rolled down. A man I didn't recognize was sitting in the driver's seat. He was large, muscular, his eyes hidden behind expensive sunglasses. "David Thompson?" he asked. His voice was smooth, menacing. "Who are you?" "Name's Jackson. I work for Mr. Harrison." "Jackson, the fixer. I had heard rumors in the industry about him. A man who cleaned up messes, who made problems disappear." "You caused quite a scene last night, David," Jackson said. "Mr. Harrison is not happy, and you're sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." "People could get hurt in this building," I said, my voice steady. "I don't care what Ryan thinks." Jackson chuckled, a cold, humorless sound. "You should. You made some serious accusations about the waterfront project. Accusations that could cost Mr. Harrison a lot of money. And you heard what that disgruntled lawyer told you. Forget it." He leaned closer. His smile disappeared. "If you know what's good for you, you'll keep your mouth shut. Forget everything you think you know." "Or what's?" I challenged. Jackson's eyes narrowed. "Or we will bury you. We will sue you for defamation. We will destroy your business, your reputation, everything you have built." He paused, letting the threat sink in. "We might even find code violations in your past projects. Accidents happen, David. And that apartment your daughter just lost all her money on. We'll make sure she's evicted by the end of the month. You're an old man, David. Don't start a war you can't win." The window rolled up. The SUV sped away, leaving me standing alone in the dust. They were trying to intimidate me, to silence me. They thought I was weak, a washed-up old builder. They were wrong. I wasn't going to let him take my daughters home, too. I was going to fight back. I called Frank. We met at a diner outside the city. He looked terrible, nervous, jumpy. "They know I talked to someone," Frank whispered, looking over his shoulder. "They suspended me. They're watching my house. Jackson paid me a visit." "I know, Frank. He threatened me too. He threatened Emily." Frank slid a USB drive across the table. "It's all here, David. The original stabilization reports. The fake ones they submitted to the city. The emails detailing the substandard materials. The kickbacks to the inspectors. It's everything." I looked at the USB drive. It was small, insignificant, but it held the power to destroy Ryan Harrison. "Why are you doing this, Frank? You could lose everything." Frank looked down at his hands. Calloused, worn, hands like mine. "Because it's the right thing to do, David," he said. "My father was a builder. He taught me to build things that last." He looked up at me, his eyes clear, determined. "Ryan Harrison builds tombs." I took the USB drive. I called Sarah Chen, the lawyer. "I have proof," I said. "Everything Frank gathered. They threatened us." We met at her new office, small but clean. She was starting over too. Sarah reviewed the documents. Her face grew paler with every page. "This is explosive, David," she said. "This is massive fraud, criminal negligence. Ryan, Mark, Jackson, even some city officials. They could all go to jail for a long time. I want to expose him," I said. "I want everyone to know the truth." "It won't be easy," Sarah warned. "Ryan has powerful friends. He will fight dirty. They already threatened you." "I don't care," I said. "I'm a builder. I know how to tear things down when the foundation is rotten." Sarah nodded slowly, a flicker of admiration in her eyes. "Okay, David, let's take him down." She didn't call the newspapers. She called the district attorney's office and the FBI's white-collar crime unit. This was bigger than a headline. The war had begun. The investigation was swift, quiet, until it wasn't. The story broke a week later, not in the newspapers, but on the evening news. The waterfront project was swarmed by FBI agents. The site was shut down. The city council launched an emergency session. Ryan Harrison's empire crumbled. Overnight, the evidence was overwhelming. His investors pulled out. His loans were called in. His reputation was destroyed. The banks froze his assets. He was arrested that afternoon, charged with fraud, conspiracy, racketeering, and criminal negligence. I watched the news coverage on TV at home. Emily sat beside me, holding my hand. We watched Ryan Harrison being led away in handcuffs. His expensive suit rumpled, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear. The arrogant smirk was gone, replaced by the terrified realization that his life was over. He looked small, weak, irrelevant. Mark, his loyal friend, was also arrested, charged with conspiracy. Jackson, the fixer, was caught trying to flee the country and was picked up for witness intimidation and extortion. Even Miss Harrison, Ryan's father, was under investigation for his involvement in the cover-up, though it seemed he was more a victim of his son's greed than a willing participant. The whole rotten structure collapsed because they ignored the foundations. Emily watched the news with me. She was quiet, reflective. "You did it, Dad," she said softly. "You stopped him. You saved lives." "We did it, sweetheart," I said. "We exposed the truth." She hugged me tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Dad." I held her close, feeling a profound sense of peace. Justice had been served. The truth had come to light. We had lost the money, but we had gained everything else. Our integrity, our self-respect. A few months later, the waterfront district was saved. The old buildings were being restored. Preserved. The city had hired a new development company, a company known for its integrity. They hired me to oversee the restoration work. Frank was my foreman. I stood on the site, the smell of sawdust and fresh concrete filling the air, the sound of hammers and saws echoing around me. Honest work. Work that mattered. I was building something that would last. Emily visited me on the site. She was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, a hard hat tucked under her arm. She looked happy, relaxed, free. She had managed to keep the apartment, thanks to Sarah's legal help and a payment plan. But she was selling it, moving back to the old neighborhood, closer to me. She was going back to school, studying architecture. She wanted to be a builder, like her father. "You look good, sweetheart," I said, smiling. "I feel good, Dad," she said. "I feel like myself again." She looked around the site, the workers moving with purpose, the old buildings standing proud against the skyline. "This is what progress looks like," she said, "building on the past, not destroying it." I looked down at my calloused hands. They were the hands of a builder. They had built houses, a life for my family. They were the hands of a father. Ryan had called me an old fool. He was wrong. Old fools don't build foundations, I said quietly, the words heavy with meaning. And they certainly don't let anyone hurt their daughters. As I stood there with my daughter, surrounded by the work that defined my life, I felt a profound sense of peace. I might be just a builder with dusty boots and calloused hands. I might be covered in the remnants of my labor, but I had built something that no amount of money could buy. Something that Ryan, with all his wealth and ambition, could never understand. A legacy of love, loyalty, and integrity. And that was a foundation that could never be broken. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.